All right, let's do this.
What?
I'm ready to not be hot during this recording.
Bro, what did you just do?
I just walked in the shower and I came right back out.
What? Wait, why are you doing?
Water evaporates, and then I don't need an AC. I am my own swamp cooler.
I get this, but people are going to be like, why is he drenched?
Well, because, we can explain it. We'll leave this in, whatever. Explained.
Why? What is this?
Well, you see, it was 93 degrees in my house today, and I'm still kind of recovering from that temperature-wise out there. I put my little Bernoulli system on. I'm like spitting water everywhere, but it's shower water. It's not human water. And I got like the fans going out there.
What is human water versus shower water?
Like,
Oh, spit?
Spit or sweat or something like that.
I did not think you were covered in spit.
Oh, shoot. I wet my notes. That's fine. Because sweat, I don't like being sweaty.
I thought you were walking to the other room to like turn off the thermostat so that your AC sound would not be happening. And I was like, hey, how big is his house to where he's been gone for like a minute to turn his AC down? What happened?
Well, you see.
And then you return
my thermostat.
Like
yeah, well, I'm cooler now.
Is your chair like soaking wet now? Did you just have a trail of water that you've just brought in? I see that's a wood floor, isn't it?
Well, wood can have like a little water, like as a treat,
I guess it depends on the coating of the wood floor. Hopefully it's
very minimal.
Wood.
It's like a light sprinkle. But yeah, no, my AC, there's that fly again. My AC has a cooling button, like you can turn it down, but then it's funny when you do that, it does nothing because I don't have an air conditioner. I just have this window one right here. That's why it was 93 degrees in the house right over there. But
got it.
I turned off the AC to not have it sound like that the whole time.
I don't know if anybody who watches this for the sake of being informed about finance is now going to take us seriously after this introduction.
See, that's good. Because you shouldn't take anything seriously. We are no exception. And by the way, the levels, they were going like this on the microphone. And so, right. I don't know. I felt, let's not make it loud or anything.
And yeah, this comes as just as much a surprise to me that we say at the recording, you're like, 1 second, and you come back drenched.
Well, I forgot. Hey. Oh no, my AC's on.
Welcome
this fly is back.
Episode 2 of Marginal Advice.
Yes.
Where clearly we are the right people to listen to when it comes to anything finance related. Wait, did you actually make an intro?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. This was kind of...
Sorry.
Are you okay?
Yeah, no. There was a spider up there, and I've been monitoring it because while it's still in the room, it's not going to leave my consciousness. But I just noticed that there is a second spider, and they're facing off like it's the Old West. They're not moving, but they're looking at each other. They're two different types of spider as well. And now I'm just going to hope they don't jump onto my face because one of them moves way too fast.
Should we do this a different night?
No, this is Sunday night that's what football, podcasts, God, Sunday night, it's a Sunday night. Sorry, Jordan, you were speaking.
I was just saying that this topic was sort of your choice to delve into, so I figured that maybe you would be a good one to lead into it.
Oh yeah, because last week was yours, the Wall Street Bets. You gave that one, so this one we're doing Bill Hwang, the world's greatest trader.
Give us some backstory on Bill Hwang.
Well, that's it's cool at least. It's a little uncomfortable, but I should have wore socks. But I didn't. That's fine.
You really shouldn't wear wet socks. I'm
not for a long time, just for, I'd say, an hour. So here we go. I've got some notes here, so I didn't forget things and look stupid, but they're a little wet now. But yeah, Bill Hwang was quite the story last year because he came up from pretty modest means. He grew up in South Korea and he moved to the US, I believe, when he was 18. He moved in 1982. He moved here. And him and his father were very devout Christians. His father was a pastor. This is important for his trading strategy. That comes into things later. But yeah, he actually did not have much. He's not like most billionaires, people who have $20 billion. They normally have some help from, their father who had $19 billion.
You get a small loan of $1 billion?
Actually, we'll go into that later. Yeah, just monitoring them up there, making sure they're fine and not moving. Anyway, Hwang started out when he moved to the US, Las Vegas, on the Strip. He started out working as a line chef at McDonald's at nights. Really started how a lot of people can. So, hey, it just goes to show, if you work at McDonald's, if you think you're, still trying to work up the ladder, you can lose $20 billion too.
Anyone can do it.
Anyone. Specifically, if you get a business degree and are a fantastic salesman, then you'll find yourself in the hands of one of the most prolific hedge fund managers of the 80s and 90s. The Tiger King. He's not that. Not the Tiger King
I don't
guy.
think it was called Tiger King.
But
they
he
were called
have.
Tiger Cubs,
Yeah.
those who were, but Tiger Capital Management, right,
Yes.
was the hedge fund
Yes.
that he went to work with. And obviously he did well enough because he was able to get seated by the founder of that. And so, yeah, he and those who were, you keep looking up and it's making me so nervous.
I'm trying not to look up. I'm going to stop looking up there. Please continue.
Can you just remove them from the plane of existence?
I wish. They're both in the corner above the molding. And so nothing can fit in there except for a liquid or like a spray. And I have taken cups of soapy water because soapy water is good for insects because it lowers the surface tension of the water, which suffocates them because they breathe through their skin. But I would have to throw 2 cups of water at the same time and hit them both. And then I feel like that would take a bit. I think we've had enough water. And so that would take away from the episode a little too much. It would be the next 10 to 15 minutes spider hunting. If you would like to do that, we can. I will. But you were speaking.
Okay. Where were we?
We were talking about Julian Robertson and his Tiger management and the related Tiger Cups because of that.
So, I mean, did you have any more detail you wanted to go into about Tiger Capital Management? Obviously, it was a very successful hedge fund. And Bill was one of the proteges and then went on to start Tiger Asia.
Yeah. Tiger Management, as a note, started with $8.8 million from the guy's family and friends, a small loan of $8.8 million there. And he grew that to, in 20 years, $22 billion. So,
I mean, that was a pretty good loan.
Yeah,
to give at that point. I mean, any nepotism aside, if you can take $8 million and turn it into $22 billion, you've done a pretty good job.
Yes, although in cases like those, sometimes you'll find that to get that $22 billion, there's a lot of alleged backstabbing that might go on, but we'll get to that later.
So there's some other drama on the Tiger Capital Management side outside of Bill. Seems like there might be stories to tell. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, do continue. He started, as you said, Tiger Asia in 2001.
That continued until he was charged with insider trading in 2012, I think, and then essentially he wasn't able to run a hedge fund any longer.
So he transitioned to his fund, his own little family fund. It's called a family office.
Family office.
Which is essentially a hedge fund for one family. It's a single family's fund.
It's not a hedge fund. It's a wealthy person who hires on employees, analysts, so on and so forth, to treat their own wealth as if it were a fund, but it is just one person's wealth.
Right.
And deciding what to do with it.
Legally, it's important that it is not a hedge fund because that means it's held to less strict laws than hedge funds. So Hwang was able to get away with more than he would have until he didn't.
I mean, when it comes to like hedge funds have to disclose all their positions and quarterly filings and whatnot. And I assume if you're a family office, you're not held up to the same standards. Although, and this kind of ties into what the latest developments in the story are, if you go over a certain threshold of ownership in a corporation, you do have to disclose that. The spiders are still fighting over there.
It's unconscious. I'm unconsciously looking because I look around in general. I promise I'm paying attention to you.
Thank you. I felt very neglected that you were focusing more on spiders than you were focusing on me.
I didn't want to make you feel bad. So if I do it again, ignore me. I will instantly catch myself and say, hey, don't do that.
You'll catch yourself, but you won't catch the spiders.
That's true. But wait till they come down from that little crevasse. Please.
Anyway, that's all I was saying. It's good timing that you brought, because I think you brought up Bill Hwang as a topic prior to the latest developments that have happened more recently. So it's nice that there is more to discuss than just going over the initial kind of situation and the facts that have already kind of been discussed in previous videos. Although I do think there are probably people watching this who, maybe come from my videos and audience who have no idea about, never heard the name Bill Hwang before, but perhaps are just interested in how somebody loses $20 billion in a day, basically.
Hey, give him some credit. It was 2 days.
Fair enough. Sorry, I sped up the timeline too much.
I didn't know as much about him either. I brought him up as a topic because I thought the general story was interesting, but that's all I knew was the general story. I didn't know a lot of these details that I found out on how exactly he got to losing that 20 billion. And there's some interesting foreshadowing and everything. They'll make a movie about it or something probably.
So he got in, right? He started trading essentially, and I think it was like 1982, right? Right in the early 80s.
82 is when he moved to the USA, but some years later, after he got his college degree, then he started trading at Hyundai as a salesman. Such a good salesman that's when he was noticed by that old guy, the hedge fund guy. The Tiger King. And so... The Tiger King. Hey, he was. And I am completely...
He's the original Tiger King.
Exactly. I am baffled how I did not come across that name in any... Because before Tiger King was the Tiger King, I don't understand how Julian Robertson was not called that. I am confuzzled. I don't know how that name never came up. And now...
You think he watched that show on Netflix and he's like...
It's like, hey,
that was supposed to be me.
That's me right there.
That's my brand. He's stolen from me.
He saw the documentary and he's like, finally some appreciation. And then actually watched it and it was...
This is not what I want to be associated with. This is not the Tiger King that I saw myself as. Shoot. Let's run it back.
This is now a Tiger King podcast, actually.
I didn't watch the second season of that. But anyway, let's get back on topic.
Right.
So I think something that's important to note though is like, if you started trading in the 80s up until around 2000, you saw a pretty solid bull market. There was in 1987 had a big crash, but it recovered losses fairly quickly after that. And bonds have obviously been up and up and up since the early 1980s. And so you've had very much a bull market since then, which I think
contributes to some of Julian Robertson's magic. hedge
Obviously,
fund.
that contributes to some of the hedge funds having huge gains, but those hedge funds are, of course, beating the market. But by having that kind of consistent bull market, it does allow you to, you don't know it at the time, but when you lever up and continue keeping that leverage ratio equal, if the stock market continues to go up, you don't run into trouble. And obviously you would on like a 1-day 20% crash like in 1987. But obviously they were properly hedged for that, or they had delevered perhaps at that point. But in any case, when you're used to that sort of prevailing market condition, then it can kind of get you in the habit of, oh, this probably always works, right?
Yeah. Everyone's a great trader until a recession.
But in any case, so I don't know if I'm skipping ahead too much because you had all those notes, but he walked away in 2012 and started the family office with, it was about 200 million, right?
Yes. And he walked away because he was convicted, or at least he pleaded guilty to insider trading in Tiger Asia, which is how he made Tiger Asia was very successful. That was Tiger Asia was what he had Julian Robertson seed him. We talked about it. So it was very successful, but it was very focused on some individual stocks. It didn't have a lot of diversity, which is something that will come back later in his next firm, Archegos.
Is it Archegos or Archegos?
Archegos.
Yeah, let's just pronounce it that way. Archegos.
Archegos. I was thinking of...
I've heard Archegos primarily.
Okay.
It's definitely not Archegos. I believe that's Kathy Wood's new fund or something. Archegos.
Oh, they should combine that. Because interestingly enough, though, Kathy
they
Woods...
know each other, right?
They know each other, and they are both God's children.
Okay. Well, I mean, they were both very religious.
Yes, but not only are they very religious, they take that religion into their trading strategy, which comes along later.
Correct. Yes, I've heard it that Kathy Wood has also said that her trades are guided by, I don't know if she like it just speaks with God or what the relationship is, but that's the trades are kind of interlinked with her faith in some way or another.
And it was the same with Hwang. Yeah.
Right.
Which is why he took so many risky levered positions, because he had faith. They were the positions to go for. And then he was doing it not for money, but for his devout beliefs.
Okay. Well,
so allegedly.
Did you want to go into what the start of Archegos looked like, or what he...
Well, in 2013, a year after he pled guilty to insider trading in Tiger Asia, he started Archegos, and he started with 200 million, which was, I don't know. It's okay, I guess. Fair. It's a little bit of money. I mean,
just a bit.
I guess.
Personally, I'd prefer 200 billion.
It's not enough for me,
know.
but I guess for some people, 200 million is fine. But yeah,
that only gets you like small yachts. So
yeah, if you really want, look, I'm not stopping till I get my yacht inside of a yacht. You ever see those yachts? The yacht,
I have.
It's like a bag. Like when you go to the grocery store, you get enough bags, you get a bag. You go to the money store, you get enough money, you get a yacht.
Have you ever seen there's also RVs that have you can have the car inside the bottom of the RV?
Whoa, it's like that's like an aircraft carrier for motor vehicles. It's a land craft carrier. That's are we sharing screen? No, I was thinking we could pull that up, but we won't get too off topic. Yes, I was glancing at the spider. Oh, fine. I'm sorry. But yeah, he started with 200 million.
200 million, not 200
he
billion.
was going for 200 billion.
He was. And he would have gotten away with it too.
If it wasn't for those meddling banks.
Share offerings.
Yeah. And he increased that 200 billion to 5 to 10 billion. There are some differing kind of accounts, but eventually it peaked at, I believe, 20 billion in total assets of his. And then his combined with the bank's assets that he got with swaps, a lot more than that.
I mean, it was over 100 billion. He was levered like between 5 to 8 times.
Yeah. And that,
which is wild. That is a wild leverage ratio, and to have it at that
$20
level.
billion. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big part of his downfall. And so the leverage here that is why this story is such a spectacular happening in finance, and why it was all over the news, because the amount of leverage this guy had for such a high amount of money with almost no risk management with it. He was like, these are the stocks. God is telling me to do it. I'm putting all of my money in here. And that worked for him somehow for a while.
Well, so there is an interesting part. Well, maybe we should elaborate more on how these trades were done. So
Right.
He essentially picked a bag of a few stocks. Some of the big ones with big fallout were Viacom, Discovery, Baidu. And he essentially just kept putting more and more money into those particular stocks. But he's putting so much money into them that he is affecting the price of the stock, and the reason why the stocks are going up and the reason why his net worth is increasing is because he is driving up the price himself, which you have to ask, how could he ever actually have unwound the positions without what was his exit strategy? Did he have an exit strategy? That's kind of the interesting conundrum about the whole situation. But I do want to back it up just to be clear about the whole leverage thing. So let's say that you have a $1 million account with your brokerage, and you get a margin account with them, and then you take your $1 million and then you get $1 million on margin. So you're leveraged 1x, and then you go and buy a stock, and then it doubles in value. You now have $2 million to your name with a $1 million, if the stock doubles in value, you put all of your $2 million into it, you're going to have $3 million. That's you. And you're still going to have that 1 million plus a little bit of interest that you have on your margin loan. 25% is leveraged on loan, and 3 million belongs to you. In his situation, the more that he grew what he was entitled to, what belonged to him, the more he would keep a constant leverage ratio. So if he bought in with that initial 2 million and then that stock doubled, he'd make sure he maintained that 1-to-1 leverage ratio. So all of a sudden his position would then be, 2 million to 2 million or 4 million to 4 million, except in his case, it was 5 to 8x. So he'd be 1 million of his own principal, 5 million of the bank's principal. So as soon as that decreases by 20% in value, all of a sudden your principal's wiped out. You'd be margin called before that happened, though. And well, we'll get to the part where he is margin called later on. But either way, just so everyone understands the concept of leverage, if you're levered 5 times and the stock goes down 20%, you're wiped out. So it really has to keep going up.
Yeah, and it did for a while. But the important thing about this leverage that he took on was that he took it on from multiple banks, and none of the banks knew about the other one, and they would not have given it to him if they did. Now, because this was a family office and he didn't have to be as public about his filings or about his trades as a hedge fund would. He did what was called total return swaps, which means he gets this leverage from the bank and he pays a fee for this leverage. That's why the banks gave it to him, because normally, someone convicted on insider trading, you're not going to want to work with them probably. But this guy,
as soon as you got a few $1 billion, they're like, maybe we can make an exception for you.
Interestingly, something happens when you get a few $1 billion. And so the banks decided to give him the money. Now, the thing is, he went to each of these different banks: Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Nomura, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, and UBS. All of these banks, he was leveraged 2 times on. And so he gave them, I guess, if he started out with 200 million, I don't know exactly how much he gave.
I doubt it went, just at this. He didn't pool it out equivalently at the same time. I'm sure
he gave them
scaled
all
over
100
time.
millions to billions of something, because he gave them all with these total return swaps. That means that he gives the bank money. The bank will do the trades that he asks, but it's under the bank's name. That is the important part. So when people look what Archegos has under its trading, it's not going to say, oh, this fund has $100 billion here. It's going to say 20, and then all the different banks have their own, that they're in an agreement with Hwang that he can get the money back. And the reason they do this is because Hwang pays a fee for the banks to give him leverage. The banks get all these fees. If the price goes up, Hwang gets his money and pays them the fees. If the price goes down of the stock, then Hwang still pays the fees, and the banks don't lose money. The banks get paid by Hwang. And so banks get the fees. Hwang gets the, hopefully, growth for him. And everyone was happy until 2021. But
I mean, so to be clear here, if any entity gets over a 5% stake in a public company, it has to be disclosed. So if you recall back to Elon Musk deciding that he was going to buy Twitter, like hostile takeover style, after he got over 5%, he was supposed to declare that. He was a little bit delayed in filing that. But in any case, if you do not directly purchase the shares yourself, all in one batch through one brokerage, or however you elect to go about it, then you can go to all the different banks, do these total return swaps, which essentially gives you privacy for what your positions are. So you buy the total return swap, the bank sells it to you, the bank then buys the shares to hedge their position, and then you're on the hook for any losses, and you receive any of the gain, whatever the delta is on the movement of the underlying stock. But because he was at all these different banks, he was essentially able to own much more than a 5% position without it ever being disclosed.
Even to the other banks.
Yeah. It was just a bunch of like blind baskets that he was able to reach into in order to anonymously purchase these. So you, as say someone Joe Schmo public trader, or even institutions out there looking as to try to figure out why stocks like Viacom and Discovery and Baidu may have been moving up the way that they did, would have been completely out of the loop and no way to realize that a lot of that price action driving the stock up was just due to this one entity buying it from a bunch of different places. So he was driving these share prices up himself. And again, it's just like, how do you exit?
Yeah, because if you're the one who has to do all the selling, if you're selling 15 or 5, however much he had, I think over 50% of one of the stocks, you're selling and driving the price down. And so as it goes further, I guess his strategy would have been to sell over quite a long period of time, which is what one of the banks wanted to do to save themselves when it all started going down. That didn't work out, but we'll get to that.
So essentially over the course of, 2012 or 2013 until 2021, it was a very, very much a bull market environment. If you had put all your money into TQQQ in 2013, you would have been very, very happy right up until the COVID crash. So he was basically in that market environment, just continuously bringing in more leverage, continuing to drive the prices of those stocks up. And then in 2021, something happened.
The unthinkable happened to him. Well,
Which he survived COVID, which is really weird.
I was about
COVID
to say
did
that.
not wipe
I was
him
going to
out.
say, how did that drop more than anything else? Did he just say to the banks, listen, it's COVID. It's going to be fine. Don't liquidate me. And they just said, okay, yeah, okay, sure.
Well, it's so interesting because like throughout his career, he survived the 1987 crash. He survived the .com bubble burst. He survived the global financial crisis, and he survived COVID.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it was at the very peak, because I feel like peak froth in like growth stocks, ARK, that sort of thing. It was around like February, March, right after GameStop, maybe GameStop 2.0, February, March 2021. And
interestingly, also, Hwang was burned by GameStop 0.0, the Volkswagen squeeze. His Tiger Asia, one of the reasons it was going down, it went down because he
was on the wrong side
shorted
of that.
Volkswagen. Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was at like peak froth when things were still pretty high up there in valuations in March 2021, and that's finally what got him.
Wow. A couple stocks started to go down a bit in this top of the market time when a Chinese tech company and an American Brazilian fashion company, was it? They started to go down a little bit, but
I know Viacom was the primary
nail
driver
in the coffin. Yeah. Viacom began to do a stock sell-off.
Well, they were like, "Wow, our share price is really high.
Gee,
I wonder why that is."
That's crazy. Sell some of this.
We should do an offering at $100 or whatever. Our
And
share,
they were
we're like
all
10x up
Hwangs.
over. Yep. Yeah. So people, well, obviously, a share offering means you're adding shares to the float, and so therefore, the price per share is going to go down. So people started selling Viacom.
Yes.
He tried to buy. He tried to like keep the price propped up. He's like, no, this is going to be bad. And unfortunately, despite all of his attempts to prop the price, it didn't work. And then the domino cascading margin call effect began.
Yeah. He started out with, because I believe it dropped 20% in a day or a week, Viacom.
Oh, dude, Viacom. I remember watching it the day that it went down
to be fair, it tripled in price before it.
Yeah. It went massively up.
Then it crashed.
But I remember the day, like I didn't know what was happening.
I remember
at
reading
the time.
about it too. No one knew what was going on with it.
Yeah, but Viacom like plummeted 50%. And I remember I was actually doing a live stream and I was talking with Zine, who was in the series with me. And I was like, oh my God, if you had bought puts yesterday on Viacom, it was like the shortest expiration date. It was like 36,000% gain. If you had bought the right strike price, shortest expiration, it was the most insane percent. Like it put GameStop to shame in terms of the 1 day percentage gain on an option.
Wow.
Yeah, because there was not high volatility priced into the Viacom options, so no one expected crazy moves to happen. And then when it did, it just
that was
boom,
obviously
like
the biggest move Viacom had ever done.
Yeah. Not in the direction they would hope for it to do.
No,
but
yeah.
Discovery as well was getting hit the same day. It was just like oh my God. It was fascinating to watch it and then hear after the fact, oh, this is why that happened.
Yeah, not being a rich $1 billion hedge fund manager, being like, oh yeah, that's cool. Glad I don't own that. I bet Hwang wanted to be an insider trader that day.
he would have liked to hear about the offering before it happened. I'm sure.
Oh man. And so when that started to go, that was the beginning of the end. It was a short beginning and end. There wasn't much of a middle. There was 2 days. He went from $20 billion to zero, $130 billion with the bank's money. So what happened with that was the banks came together and said, all right, this Hwang guy, he's going a little bit crazy. I think we gotta step away from him. Can we?
Do we know where all the banks kind of found out? It feels like someone who just had a bunch of like girlfriends or boyfriends, and they all kind of like suddenly become aware of each other, and they're like,
"Oh yeah, that's true." How did they find out? Like, wait, y'all are giving Hwang $200 billion right now? I thought I was
the only one. What?
Oh my God.
That's what I wanted. I want to like know that. I want to be a fly on the wall when they like all kind of. Wait, this is who you were? Wait, we were lending him money too. What?
Mr. Sack. You were.
I thought I was unique. I thought we were. I thought we had a special.
I thought we had something special.
I was your prime broker. Prime means special.
And now you're telling me you got all these side brokers that you've been with? Oh my God.
You can only have one prime broker, okay?
Jeez. Well,
anyway, they all found each other out
about each other. And then one day they came in, they met up with each other, had all representatives huddle up, say, all right, we got to sell off some of this. How are we going to do this? Because they were telling Hwang, hey, your stuff's starting to go down here. This is before Viacom, but Viacom was caused by what's about to happen. But some stuff was going down, and they were saying, hey, Hwang, sell. And he said, no.
Well, so he expended the remainder of his cash to try to prop up the prices.
Which was illegal, but this fly will exist anyway.
For a lot longer, probably.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, they came together and they started to work out a plan. It wasn't all the banks. It was Nomura, Credit Suisse, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley. Those were the ones. The two other ones didn't. But point is, they huddled up together and they were talking about selling over time so that the banks, could not lose a whole bunch of money at once when stuff started to go south. So naturally, guess which banks allegedly stabbed the other ones in the back to
Why
keep
do you say
their
naturally?
capital.
I don't know that the people watching this have they're like, oh yeah, I know Credit Suisse versus Goldman and their tendencies and how they usually act.
Look, I don't know if you know Mr. Sack or Stanley himself, but
I think most of those guys are very dead because most of those banks were started in like the 1800s. But
I don't know, with enough billions.
Mr. Sack. Mr. Sack.
So the CEO of Sack decided that he was going to
I believe that's David Solomon.
That sounds...
I think that's actually the name of the CEO, yes.
David Solomon and partners decided alongside Morgan Stanley's CEO and partners that they were going to say, hey, these other banks, they're playing nice. They're not going to sell until we all come to agreement and sell over time. Let's get all of our money out before they sell, and then we'll be good, and they can die. Allegedly. Yes. So they did. Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs got out first. That is what caused most of the initial plunge in Viacom stock and similar stocks that Archegos bought and held and was doing the swaps with. And because of that, those two banks were fine, and Nomura and Credit Suisse lost billions of dollars that they could have avoided if everyone played along, but no, you don't be...
Prisoner's dilemma, right?
Yes, exactly. Wow. Well, so I said naturally before, guess who naturally did? Because Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, of the list of banks that Hwang was swapping with, those two are the biggest. They're like the most powerful banks. And naturally, you don't become a giant multinational billions and billions of dollar bank without being real shady and not being honest and
being cutthroat.
Allegedly.
Being cutthroat. Yeah.
Yeah, to put it nicely. But that's the foreshadowing from before. So they sold off. Some banks got hit. I actually have an image here that I took a picture that showed the news story. When this happened, it was a huge deal because $100 billion was vanishing from stocks. Giant losses were occurring. And so you see here, just one of the news stations I was covering at CNBC had Nomura lost 16.7% of their stock price.
Their own market cap.
Their own. No, this was their stock price went down. Sorry. Went down 16.7%. Credit Suisse 14.1%. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs 2.8%, 1.5%. They're doing fine. Deutsche Bank, interestingly, is also doing fine, but maybe they didn't have a big of a
didn't have
position.
as much of a leverage offered there. Maybe.
Yeah, but you can really see here how Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley's actions benefited them to the extreme detriment of their competitors. So, man,
I you know what? I guess businesses want to prioritize themselves first and foremost. I can't say it's surprising.
Right. Not too surprising, but a little, not great. So they sold off. Archegos defaulted, and all of their positions were liquidated to try and cover the massive losses that they were taking. But, Jordan, please continue. I've been going too much.
Oh no, I think you're covering it well. It's just, what I find super interesting is I don't know entirely how he was planning to, because even though his position, he was personally entitled to about $20 billion, and that was his net worth at that point. It's like, for him to actually realize that was relatively impossible, because he would just end up having to sell the stock and decrease the price. So I'm like very curious, even if this all hadn't blown up epically and he was actually able to try to realize gains at some point, I just want to know what the plan would have been. Was he just going to lever up forever until it blew up? Was there no way that this was going to turn out any other way? Or did I just wish I knew if he had a plan as to how he was actually going to unwind the positions. But
I think technically, if it was not going to end up another way, he would have been fine to get his money if he decided, okay, I'm done. He could have sold his positions over a period of years, and I think he could have been fine.
But over a period of that, man, you have to hope that over that entire time where you're trying to unwind these positions, that nothing else is going to come out to cause people to realize, oh, you're right, the price of this stock only is what it is because it's been pushed up by this one entity. Right. And if that ever becomes known, then people are going to sell because they're going to be like, oh, so this price is not at all justifiable. And this was manipulated.
Although, unless they were to institute laws that specified that they had to talk about their holdings, which they did not, only now that this has happened, and because of the fallout from this one family office, some are calling to institute laws against family offices, more strict ones at least.
I assume there's going to be probably some regulations for total return swaps at the very least. That are going to be put into place. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if anything happens, because a lot of times it doesn't. But Hwang managed to keep it secretive for 8 years as he was doing it, as he went from 200 million to 20 billion, 100 billion in assets. If he kept doing that and it didn't come out, then yes, I think over a period of years he could have saved himself, but it wouldn't have happened. I think that this was an inevitability because he would have kept going. He would not have stopped at this if this didn't happen. He would have kept going until this happened, because you don't get to $20 billion in 8 years from being cautious. And this guy was not cautious in any way.
God, I can't imagine. I mean, I'd probably, I'd have been 200 million and then doubled it in like a year and a half, however long. And you'd be like, wow, I doubled it in a year and a half. Maybe I should, there is you want to size your bets properly in order to ensure that you don't get wiped out. And there is, especially when it comes to, let's say, like casino gambling and betting, there is, the Kelly criteria and the Kelly ratio of like actually how much you are supposed to bet in order to optimize your growth while minimizing your downside. Yeah, there's a whole theory behind betting sizes. And so you would think that at some point he'd be like, okay, let me kind of scale things back, not necessarily keep this fixed leverage ratio. But again, he would not have hit $20 billion, and he probably wouldn't have started this strategy in the first place if he was more cautious. So
yeah,
it takes a gutsy bet to get there in the first place, but then you are far more likely to get wiped out.
Hey, that's just like callback. That's what we discussed last episode, where you see all these graphs go up and up and up, and then they plunge because the mindset to get to this point is the same one to get to this point.
I mean, I remember like when it was out on the news that, all the tanking of, Viacom, Discovery, so on and so forth, that was due to this guy, Bill Hwang, and he lost $20 billion, and all Wall Street Bets posts for like, he should be memorialized on the top of the sub.
Honorary mod.
He's our hero. Yeah. No one's lost this much before.
This guy is our king. He is the new Tiger King.
Yeah.
The Tiger Cub becomes the king of Wall Street.
He's certainly he's probably a more well-known name now than the Tiger King.
Is he? I don't know. I think Tiger King is still more known.
No. Not the Netflix Tiger King.
Yes, of course. Our Tiger King. The real Tiger King. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't have known about this guy, Julian Robertson, without Hwang. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
He overshadowed his sensei.
Wow. The cub becomes the convicted.
So so now that's where we're at. So we should move on to the latest, more recent developments, right?
Yes. And I guess just to wrap up the old developments, even though Archegos was liquidated and lost the $20 billion that it had, and the banks got mostly out of their tens of billions up to upwards of $100 billion positions, they still lost money. It's kind of that old saying, if you lose $1 million, it's your problem. If you lose $1 billion, it's the bank's problem. And in this case, it definitely was. And so alongside that 20 billion, an additional 10 billion of the bank's money was lost that Hwang was supposed to pay back, but couldn't for some reason.
What do you do when you owe $10 billion and you don't have any? There's not you can't really garnish wages at that point. No. It's hard to feel bad for the banks because they knew the leverage that they were extending on his own lines at each bank was still a lot of leverage.
And they knew his past as shady in the financial world.
So, and it's just not. It is an interesting strategy from the banking side. It's not a terribly lucrative in terms of risk reward.
The fees, yeah,
you're making money on fees, and you're exposed to all of this risk in case things go south, but you're not rewarded on the upside if things work. So it's a strange business model with these prime brokerage divisions of the banks. And I would think they've probably been reconsidering how they run these in the wake of the Archegos blow up. So, and that is, of course, those $10 billion is why Nomura and Credit Suisse had their share price fall so much, is because the losses were on them, and those were pretty material effects to their businesses. Yeah. So probably something they'll be revisiting, if not already, as to how they handle their prime brokerages, swaps, so on and so forth. So they're minimizing their tail risk a bit.
Yeah. Well, now that this has all happened, though, this year there's finally some new news on Hwang. He has been charged with fraud, racketeering, market manipulation, and what's the fourth one?
Is this a trivia question for me?
No, you said it earlier.
Oh, I wire fraud is what I said. I said wire fraud, market manipulation, and yeah, I think you covered him. I think you got
all right.
it.
Well,
right.
So yeah, he's been charged with that. Jordan,
I should say, do we want to view that? You had the video of him talking about his trading strategy. Did you want to view that before we get into the aftermath?
Yeah. So let's just take a look first at how Hwang was so successful, how he was able to stomach all of this leverage and risk and just keep going and go from 200 million to 20 billion. So yeah, we have this video here on Hwang's investment strategy, kind of what he thinks and how he thinks on trading and why he was so aggressive in his trades. So he says, I invest with God's perspective according to his timing. We'll have to narrate this. It's in Korean.
For those listening to audio.
Right. And he goes on to say that when reading the Bible, I realized that God likes setting a fair value, helping companies establish an appropriate market price by making investment. So him being an investor, that's on God.
From my point of view, we create good companies through the capitalism that God has allowed. I mean, I can understand how if your perspective is that, God has created the world, then therefore capitalism would be a part of that. I'm also just wondering, I have not read the Bible, but is there a part in the Bible about setting fair prices?
I have also not read it, but Hwang has made it clear in a different interview that he has read the whole thing cover to cover, and he thinks people that haven't read the whole thing are kind of fake fans.
Wait, what? I mean, but if someone is, say, not religious, how would they? Did he just mean people who are Christian who haven't read it all the way through? Okay, yeah. Okay, but he didn't. But is there? Do we know? I'm genuinely curious.
There is a Bible,
in there that can be. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
Is there a passage in there that could kind of be interpreted as fair prices are a thing?
I will be honest, in doing this research, I did see his interview, but I did not consult the scripture.
You did not consult
I did not see. Okay. This is not a fully.
Got it.
Next episode, we will read the Bible front to back. It takes 80 hours according to Hwang. So it will be an 80-hour podcast.
Okay.
And so also he compares himself to Jesus again, saying, but Jesus said that his burden is light. So my burden is very light. So he's saying it's the same thing. Here he says, making investments sometimes requires strength and decisiveness, but I have neither.
Wait, I have not. Why?
Yes, but I try to invest according to the word of God and by the power of the Holy Spirit. That is...
I feel like regardless,
in a way, it's the fearless way to invest, he says.
Even if you do say that, you use your faith to invest, maybe it's his family office, so I guess he's not trying to woo any investors to put their money in as well. He's just kind of communicating his strategy. So I suppose maybe it doesn't hurt to say I have neither strength or decisiveness. But I just feel like that's not the best.
I think what he's saying
advertisement. He's trying to be humble, I guess.
No, I think what he's saying is I don't have strength. I don't have decisiveness. I got something better.
It's just a different approach. I'm sure he wouldn't be saying, I don't have strength or decisiveness if he was running a hedge fund and he was trying to lure in new capital.
No, probably not.
I guess when it's just you and your money and it's worked so far, then
I mean,
you feel you must be doing it right, and that's So if that was the approach you went into it with, and you feel that way, then you feel comfortable
100
saying
times
it to
money.
everybody.
It's kind of crazy that he was like, yes, every trade that I make is the trade, capital T, the trade to make.
I can understand how it would give you confidence. It makes sense.
And it works for him
I mean, that's probably, that might be one of the only ways that you could get yourself into that position and not kind of reduce your leverage ratio and kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, maybe now is the time that I just back out. Because I feel like if you did not have a thought that you were backed by a higher power, you probably would. I think you would just get cold feet a little bit earlier. He
went on to say that he thinks that making these trades is advancing humanity, and he was very confident in that way, and that's how he did it all. But at the same time, he was doing all of these things that are kind of against what he was saying, like doing these shady business practices, the insider trading, the lying to all these banks that they were the only one, and the market manipulation and all that just to make more money. But, I'm sure when you're making $20 billion, you can do a little thinking and be like, no, this is right.
I mean, it is fairly easy to convince yourself that it's okay. What you're doing isn't actually bad. Maybe there's a loophole.
It's always easy to convince yourself that what you're doing is right when you are gaining from it personally.
Of course. And he might have even genuinely believed that he wasn't doing anything wrong, or you just get so sucked into what you're doing that you don't really think about the consequences. And if no one's knocking on your door saying, hey, there might be a problem with what you're doing, you're like, it must be okay. I've been doing this for 7 years. No one's telling me to stop. I'm gonna keep doing it.
Well,
it was bound to fail catastrophically at some point.
Because if it didn't fail in March of 21, then it would have failed sometime in the future, because I don't think he would have stopped. He would have just kept going until.
Well, and also I think that we have seen a major correction, especially across Chinese stocks, growth stocks in the last year. And so I'm sure
if it wasn't last year, it would have been this year.
If the Viacom share offering hadn't happened, some other big decline in growth or China probably would have popped his bubble at some point in the time since March 2021.
Probably around now, because he didn't diversify that much, not in Tiger Asia and not in Archegos. That's how he made big gains, and that's how he lost a lot as well. So Bill Hwang, we will see what happens to him in the future.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have a follow-up at some point after trials happen and we see what the outcome is. But boy, oh boy. Can you imagine losing $20 billion? I still think it would have been hard for him to actually retrieve $20 billion out of his positions. I think he would have ended up lower, even if he had decided that he was going to pull out, and he did it before it all failed catastrophically.
Well, that's what they were telling him to do, the banks, before they huddled together and deceived each other, allegedly. They said, Hwang, sell now. And he said no. So maybe he actually didn't have an exit strategy. Maybe his exit strategy was dying before he ever did.
I guess that's one way to not have to worry about your trades or their outcomes.
He said he didn't fear death or money in another part of this interview. So, yeah.
Okay. I wonder if he still retains that mentality in the aftermath of things.
Well,
because it's easy to say when things are all hunky dory and on the up and up.
Well, if he's.
Do we know? Like, is there any any amount that he was able to retain for himself, or he completely zero balanced. And anything that wasn't zero, he would owe at this point, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure because supposedly he's currently living in a nice house in the suburbs, which I don't know if he has to give that up soon, but from past incidents with very wealthy people, they normally get off fine. If they lose everything, it means they lose everything except for some millions of dollars. So they're not going to be like
enough to like comfortably sustain their lifestyle.
Yes. So they might have to sell their yacht. But other than that, I've not heard of him losing everything so far, at least. Maybe once these criminal proceedings go through.
That is the thing about him, though. He didn't have a yacht. He relatively
is
flew
true.
under the radar.
He lived in a better than normal, but not huge house. He didn't have like a fancy car, a super fancy car. Because he put all of his money into this trading, which he thought was his purpose. At least he says. And so maybe he really did lose almost all of it because that's how he got there, was putting all of it in.
Yeah, I mean, that's how. I don't think he wasn't on like the Forbes billionaires list, despite having a net worth, $10 to $20 million in that last year of growth.
Yeah, that is true.
So he completely flew under the radar.
Yeah, he did keep quiet about it. I'm getting hot again.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
You really can't hear the air conditioning on your end, but you know what?
Well, if we're closing it out.
You turn it back on. Now you're actually going to be cold because you're going to have air conditioning on your drenched.
I think that's fine.
Self.
It's still probably 80 degrees where my bed is, so I could stand to be a little chilly.
Do you have an air conditioning unit where your bed is?
No, the rest of the house does. I have another AC, a window AC. That's why the rest of the house was 93 degrees, because this is the only one that I have set up. I have another one, but my landlord said I could not put it into the window, and so I have it in front of the window. I've MacGyvered up a little bit of a drainage system into a cup so it can exist inside, but that didn't work very well, and I'm still working out the kinks for that. But I did recently get a portable unit, which I didn't want to get because it's less energy efficient and takes more energy to heat, cool a smaller space. But I'm taking it over nothing, and it did help a little bit last night. That was the first time I used it, which is nice. So Bill Hwang, what a guy. I bet he has AC.
He probably has AC. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
I think even in the aftermath, he still probably has AC.
He's got AC, but not AC. A C as in the cent sign, money.
Yeah, you oftentimes see the cent sign used. You're still going, okay. For those listening on Spotify or something like that, Alex has twice now in the last couple minutes dumped more water on himself from the jug.
This is nice. The combination of water and air. I'm like half an avatar here. It's really helping me with the temperature.
I'm sure it's giving you a nice chilling effect.
Oh, let's check. They're still there.
Good.
Same place. Oop.
All right. Well, I feel like we covered the Bill Hwang story.
Yeah.
So I guess thanks everybody for tuning into episode 2.
Thank you for watching.
Were you really sitting on that?
Please
one the whole time?
continue. No, actually, I just thought of it. I'd like you to continue so we don't have to think about it.
We thank you for dedicating your time to watching this, and make sure that if you want to hear more about various finance-related topics from a couple of definitely not experts, make sure you're following along, whatever platform, I don't know, people follow on Spotify, sub on YouTube, so on and so forth, and check out the channel for more of them.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Have a good day or night. Bye.
Hopefully it's less toasty for you than it is for Alex.
Yes. I wish you cold.